Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of All Access AM. I am Billy Embody. Happy Thursday to you guys. Sorry we're a little late getting off the ground this morning. The streaming software wanted to test me on this Thursday a little bit. Could not get our stream to appear the right way. So took us a little extra fine tuning and kind of resetting everything. But ultimately, we are now here with you guys. So happy Thursday to you guys. Hope you guys are going to make it a great one as the weekend inches closer. NFL, obviously, divisional rounds going on here very, very shortly. Lots of football. And of course, the national championship on Monday. We will do more preview around that. On this edition of All Access AM, we'll be joined by Adam Lichtenstein, who covers the Canes down there in Miami. I do not envy him having to live in Miami for the traffic that I'm sure is building up around this game, but it is a fun time to be covering the Canes for him. So he will have a busy Monday night. We wanted to get him on the show, though. He was with us ahead of the Cotton Bowl when Miami took down Ohio State. He'll be returning on the show today. So excited about that. That'll be at 7:30 a.m. Central, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time for those of you out there. Looking forward to having Adam on. Always great insight with Adam. And look, we are presented on this Thursday, of course, by our friends at Horn Legend. I'm wearing a pullover right now, really comfortable, breathes well enough for me as somebody who runs a little hot. I get a little kind of leery of some of those options, in the pullover space, but these are heavy enough to make sure that I stay warm, but light enough where I don't absolutely cook all day in the pullover. So, with Miami being in the national championship, I will mention that Miami fans, you're going to want to jump on some of these new items that they have on Horn Legend. You can use code PONY, PONY, for free shipping on anything you get at Horn Legend. And make sure you click the drop down box that says you heard about it from On the Pony Express, which is All Access AM, the same family. So make sure you guys do that. Great selection here for you guys to look great. If you get the order in today and you rush ship it, which isn't free, you probably are going to get it in time for the national championship on Monday, I would imagine. So make sure you check out their full selection if you're a Miami fan. Of course, they have other great things as well. They've got jackets, which I've been touting lately. They've got the button-down collection as a whole. So make sure you're looking good, feeling good in 2026 with our friends at Horn Legend. Again, the jackets, don't sleep on them. If you're somewhere where it gets cold, check them out. Hornlegend.com is where you can shop all of that. And they're continuing to expand around the college sports space. So use that code for free shipping to take care of your favorite college football fan here as we get really, really close to this national championship game. We'll talk about that really when we get with Adam Lichtenstein here in about 20 minutes now. Kind of have to move around the show a little bit in terms of my thoughts on things, but I do want to lead off for those early bird risers with us in the chat. Do you have Fortnite? Ian Frost. I do not have Fortnite. I've never played Fortnite. Ian, thanks for being in the chat. Why should I be on Fortnite? Should I be playing Fortnite and doing this show? Is that something that might appeal to the wider audience? I don't know, but I'm sure you'll let me know in the chat. Appreciate you being here bright and early with us. And we do have a lot to get to on the show. Portal news, of course, will always hit the transfer portal. And ACC basketball, we had James Fletcher on the show Wednesday morning, had a great chat with him. It's one of our top videos right now on the site is that standalone interview with James Franklin, as well as more on the transfer portal. Kind of started separating out some videos in case you guys missed things. But we talked about that Wednesday night, and we were wondering, hey, do you think there's a chance? And of course, he said, there's always a chance, but we really didn't see, UNC and Duke going down. Well, Duke took care of business on the road at Cal Wednesday night, but in a wild Wednesday of ACC hoops, North Carolina did not. Stanford puts up 95 points, and they beat the Tar Heels 95-90. Not only that, Pitt beat Georgia Tech, which is an embarrassing home loss for Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets now sit at 1-4 in ACC play. That was kind of the game of have-nots last night. That was the low-level ACC matchup. And then SMU, Virginia Tech, two teams that have kind of been in and around the top 25. You get that type of dramatics in the final moments with Boopie Miller hitting a game-winning shot, 77-76. The Mustangs take it in Moody Coliseum. They stay unbeaten at home this season. Incredible performance down the stretch for SMU to take advantage of some sloppy play by Virginia Tech. BJ Edwards forces a steal in the final seconds to set up the Boopie Miller heroics from about 35 feet out. Funny enough, the David B. Miller court, he took the shot right there in front of David Miller, one of the SMU billionaires who really got SMU into the ACC, and sure enough, drains it and sends SMU fans into an absolute frenzy. So you get that type of incredible drama as they close out that game against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech now has lost multiple ACC contests in incredible fashion. Just no other way around it. It is play R6. From the second L in Miller. Pierce, what is R6? Waylon, you're in the chat as well now. What is that? Feel free to loop me in, guys. But you do have Boopie Miller, who continues to show, he's on an All-American track. 24 points. He had a rough night from the free throw line coming back from the flu. That kept him out against Duke, missing multiple free throws in that game. Just wasn't able to knock those down. He normally is really, really good from the line. And so SMU as a team ends up shooting 70% from the free throw line. And that kind of ends up being that difference in a sense in the game. But he makes that three-pointer. Just an unbelievable play. I'll pull it for you guys here if you're watching on our YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to All Access AM. It takes you nothing. It just allows us to continue to grow the channel. And we're so appreciative of you guys who have supported us and helped grow this thing. So here's the play for those of you who did not get a chance to see it on Wednesday night. Just insane. SMU gets it done. They take down Virginia Tech, and a game that SMU, for the most part, just they came out. They had a nice kind of ability to kind of hang around, but a super frustrating game at the same time. If you're an SMU fan, I think coming off of 2 straight losses in league play, you were hoping that coming out on home court they would have completely kind of turned it up a little bit with Boopie Miller back in. But I will say this, texting with a couple of people after the game, man, this flu strain that kind of went through SMU's team was no joke. I mean, Boopie Miller couldn't really stand on Saturday at all. They had another player, Sam Walters, who was out. So a lot of these guys recovering from that just took them a minute. Boopie Miller didn't practice this week. Just takes a minute. And they found their groove right at the right time in the final moments. It was the 5th game winner with under 5 seconds remaining under Andy Anfield's tenure at SMU already. So just his 2nd season, and they've already grabbed, the 2nd one this season. They had 3 last season against Syracuse, Virginia, and Cal Baptist. This year, Virginia Tech and Butler. Just a, kind of what you want. You want the ball in your best player's hands, and Boopie Miller delivered for SMU in the final moments. SMU now sits at 13-4 overall, 2-2 in ACC play. That was a critical win. You think about it, you're going in now to a top 25 matchup Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Central against Virginia. Does it get more kind of, ACC school matchup, I think, than Virginia and SMU, playing a little 11 a.m. brunch time special in Dallas? I don't know. I think that's kind of the time slot that most every TV network would imagine those two schools should be playing in. But we'll see what happens. Extreme T. SMU's a paper tiger, my man. They're going to get blown out. We'll see. I don't know. Virginia's very, very good. I don't know who they're going to get blown out by, but we'll find out. I think Virginia, that win over against Louisville, even without Michael Brown for Louisville, really stood out to me going on the road and winning the way they did. So they have a tough test against number 16 Virginia again on Saturday. North Carolina, though, let's go back there. We've talked about them a lot. Their point guard issues. That's not necessarily the issue. Putting up 90 points out there, out west, not sleepy at all in a sense, but defensively not able to get it done. Caleb Wilson added another 26 points, but Stanford, Abuka Okorie getting 36 points in 36 minutes, 12 of 20 from the field. Incredible game for him. Stanford rushes the court. They get that win. They were able to overcome a small halftime deficit to get this one done. And really just two teams that really were pretty good offensively all night, but UNC shot less than 40% from three-point range. It's not bad on a normal night in a sense, but you get Stanford, who's lighting it up at 57% from the field, and that includes 57% from three-point range. So, just an unstoppable force offensively for this Stanford team that they brought into this game, and they were ready to rock. And you've got to give them credit for what they were able to do in this one. Ryan Agarwal had another 20 points in this one. Jeremy Dent-Smith, another 20 points. So huge outings for them. Really not a ton of, scoring beyond that for Stanford, a few points here and there, but they were able to get this one. Henry Visar had another nice night, 26 points to match Caleb Wilson's for UNC. But outside of that, it really wasn't anything to write home about for UNC defensively. And either one of these teams, they just came out on the wrong end of it. So the Tar Heels now sit 14-3 overall, 2-2 in ACC play. Stanford 14-4, 3-2 in ACC play. So they've gotten a good run of early ACC games, and the defense for North Carolina is the story here. That was really the kind of shocking thing, because if you look back a month ago, North Carolina was looking like a team that would be right up there, among the best in college basketball, but it has just completely fallen apart since the start of 2026. When they turned the corner to 26, they were second nationally in effective field goal percentage and 10th in three-point field goal percentage. Well, that really got ran over by the Stanford Cardinal just Wednesday night in another, kind of poor defensive showing by North Carolina. They now are 136 in three-point defense. So kind of an unbelievable drop off since they've arrived now in conference play for this Tar Heel team. Hubert Davis has got to figure this out. They're still trending in the right way, as it stands for, the tournament, but a disappointing loss, not one that's going to kill you out west in terms of the net and things like that, because, Stanford has been some kind of a team that, you can't consider a pushover. You can't consider them just a doormat in general when you look at how they have fared in the league so far since arriving. And they've kind of been one of the cool storylines in a sense for this league, I think, just with some of the fun talent that they've had on that roster. But, this is not what Carolina, signed up for going out west. They now flip over to the other side of this Cal-Stanford rivalry and face off against Cal, who, should be motivated. Cal going up against Duke, not an embarrassing result by any means, but a game where you just saw Duke widen the gap against Cal, winning 71-56. Duke improves to 16-1, 5-0 in league play, 13-5 for Cal, but now just 1-4 in league play. So I think we're seeing Cal kind of show what they are as a team. They were kind of a fun story in a sense. They had a win over UCLA in non-conference, but then you've now gotten into league play, and they've started off with a tough slate. They really have. Louisville beat Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Duke, all losses now. So they face a pretty good gauntlet when they jumped into this league play. and you're kind of seeing that. So maybe they can get on track against North Carolina. North Carolina is going to want to bring it on Saturday when they face off against Cal, but not a game that you really have to hang your head if you're a Cal Golden Bear. But Duke continues to get what they needed from guys like Cam Boozer, 21 points for him. Isaiah Evans added 17 in that game to really set the pace for Duke as a whole. A really good defensive effort from Duke, holding Cal to 56 points. They did not have a single scorer over 14 points on the night for Cal. Lee Dort led the way for them with 14. Justin Pippen had 10. John Camden had 11. Just kind of a very pedestrian night for them. 37% from the field, 22% from three-point range, which is exactly what Duke shot from three-point range, which is always funny when numbers line up that way. But Duke just a little bit more efficient after that long trip at 45% from the floor. So, not a game that I'm sure Duke is thrilled with offensively either, putting up 71 points, but they were able to get what they needed, and they shot a ton of threes, and they just weren't falling as much after that long trip out west. So they get the win 71-56. Again, they'll flip over to the Stanford side, which is going to be riding that high, and we'll see how that goes on Saturday. If Stanford can find a way to knock off Duke, that would be quite the story. So kind of our run of ACC basketball here to kick off the show. I don't even want to talk about Pitt, Georgia Tech. The only thing I would say now is that Georgia Tech program has a bit of a problem right now. They are starting to trend in the wrong direction under Damon Stoudemire. It is just kind of one of those home losses that embarrasses the program. And I think this is maybe an inflection point on the program and the direction that they're headed there, because Pitt, jumped out to a 10-2 lead early and, went in, 27-15 at the under 8. I mean, it was really not close. 45-26 at the half. And that really just set the pace for the rest of the game. And that was the story. So Brandon Cummings scored 23 points off the bench for Pitt. Barry Dunning Jr. had 17 and 17, which is an incredible stat line there. But just not enough from Tech, as they shot 40% from the field as a team and had 15 turnovers. Not good over there in Atlanta on the basketball side of things. We know the football is going to continue to be, I think, at a pretty high level under Brent Key, but the basketball program right now is something that Ryan Alpert and company over there probably taking a really hard look at, as things are trending in a poor direction, I would say. I think that's safe to say. Philip in the chat: I fell asleep when Virginia Tech was up 4 with 12 seconds left. I awoke to see the Mustangs by 1 for the win. Boopy gets his best medicine with that amazing buzzer beater. It was pretty amazing. I will say this: we had one subscriber on the ponyexpress.com chime in that he left the game with 12 seconds left, and another one said I was out of there with 30 seconds left. So some people, you're trying to beat that extra traffic, and you get what you get sometimes doing that. And with the ACC and college basketball, never say never. So certainly not something to do, I think, in that final minute. Never leave a game that's even remotely close under a minute. I was kind of waiting, kind of watching that game unfold, and when BJ Edwards stole that ball, I was kind of like, man, are we about to have a Havlicek stole the ball moment here in Moody Coliseum? Not necessarily in that way, but SMU got a kind of an improbable win with Boopy making that shot. So never leave games early. Don't beat that traffic. You could say that you were there and you saw the players react to the loss or whatever, and you could sit there and complain about how you didn't like their body language and talk about it with your friends if that's what you want to see at the end of the game. So you save that extra 30 seconds. Instead, you missed an incredible game, an incredible finish. Saturday slate for ACC Hoops. We'll run through it really quick here. We do have Adam Lichtenstein about to join us. So keeping that in mind, he's going to be joining us just really, really shortly here in just a second. Again, Virginia at SMU, 11 a.m. Central on ESPN2. Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. They're back home now. 11 a.m. on ACC Network. Georgia Tech at NC State at 11 a.m. on the CW. 3 ACC games in one window there. Really, really nice stuff. Syracuse at Boston College, which continues to struggle. Boston College is in tough shape. You have that going on ACC Network at 1. Miami at Clemson in a really intriguing matchup. I think at least 1:15 on the CW. By the way, how about the CW? Putting a little 15-minute grace period in that time slot. We need more of that. It gives the studio a little time to break down maybe what happened. These college basketball games are running so late. These time starts are stupid. It should be every 2.5 hours, really, if we're thinking clearly here as TV execs. North Carolina at Cal. We mentioned that earlier. 3 o'clock on ACC Network. Then Duke right after that takes on Stanford at 5. Again, who knows if we'll see the start of that Duke game on time. Wake Forest at Florida State, 5 p.m. on ESPN2. Number 20, Louisville at Pitt, 7 p.m. on ESPN2. Louisville looking to bounce back after their loss to Virginia this week. Pitt coming off that win against Georgia Tech, but still lowly Pitt. They need to get that win on the road if you're Louisville. So we do appreciate you guys joining us on this Thursday edition of All Access AM. And as you make your preparations for the College Football Playoff National Championship, I encourage you to check out our friends at Socorro Tequila, an award-winning tequila brand. It's just agave, yeast, and water is what makes up their incredible brand that has now won multiple awards since being started in 2020. Socorro just has that really clean taste that you want in your tequila, whether it's the Añejo, the Blanco, the Reposado. Check them out today. If you get on their website, socorrotequila.com, or click the link in our episode description, you can get free shipping on 3 bottles when you go to the website and order directly. So you don't have to go to the store. You don't have to find them. You can just order them. And when you order their entire family there, the Añejo, the Blanco, the Reposado, you can get free shipping. It's like you didn't even have to go to the store. You didn't have to do anything. So make sure you check out our friends at Socorro. Just an incredible brand of tequila. I made my wife a margarita the other night, and we tried a little. We like playing around with the lemon, the lime juice, the orange juice, kind of the liqueurs involved as well with that to create kind of this perfect margarita. We're really fine-tuning it. We think we're really close in that regard, and we do that with our friends at Socorro. So appreciate them for supporting All Access AM and everything we do. All right, Adam Lichtenstein about to join us here momentarily. A couple thoughts on Miami, Indiana, as we await Adam here to kind of set the table. Indiana is, of course, a massive test for Miami's national championship hopes right now, right? It's the only thing standing in the way of the Hurricanes capturing a national championship. Fernando Mendoza and this team has played incredible football and in an efficient manner, taking care of the ball. Number one in so many efficiency categories. They don't turn it over. They don't commit penalties. And they are an old team at an average age of 22 and a half. What a world. I mean, to be sitting there as a 22-and-a-half-year-old playing college football still and playing for a national championship, what a world these guys must be living in. The Hoosiers rank 11th nationally in total offense. They're 12th in rush offense. And even though they have the Heisman Trophy winner, they're 52nd in pass offense, which is always interesting, I thought, as I've seen a couple of takes on Fernando Mendoza being the best since Joe Burrow. They're kind of placing him Burrow adjacent, and I watch Burrow. I just don't see it. I think he's really good. I think he's going to have a lot to say on Monday night in Hard Rock. I think he's going to have a good game, but still, like, guys, settle down here. Defensively, though, this is where, Carson Beck and this Miami team is going to have their hands full, of course. Number one in turnover margin. So they take the ball away. We saw that get propped up a little bit more by Oregon being pretty careless. But the offense, I do want to go back to as this Miami defense, with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor in there, they're going to have to get pressure on Fernando Mendoza, and they're going to have to, find ways with the secondary that Miami has that really should have had like 4 or 5 picks off of Trinidad Chambliss against Ole Miss to convert on those and capitalize on those, because you have an Indiana offense that is number one in third down conversion percentage, and their defense is just as good in a sense in that third down conversion percentage as well. That is going to be a matchup of statistically where this game could be won or lost. You get Indiana into poor third down situations if you're Miami's defense. Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, they can pin their ears back. They can certainly get after them a little bit more. And that plays into really what they want to do defensively. They want to let the guys loose and let them run. Mendoza, 223 yards per game, 41 touchdown passes, just 6 INTs, 284 yards on the ground as well throughout the season. He is coming right back to Miami, where it all began, his hometown, trying to take a national championship away from another hometown kid, Mario Cristobal in this case. And here's what Mendoza said, and he is at this point robotic in a sense. He's almost like a this new age of a robot where you're just like, this guy can't be real, can he? But he sure is, and he's been developed in the lab through many years. But this is for him, playing in his hometown, probably a lot, internally in a sense, and he has to focus on what he's been coached to do, the process of this Kirk Cignetti team that they want to embrace and they want to see through to the finish, as one of the great stories in college football that I can recall in recent history. But he said, we've got to be doing it, playing our brand of football, playing the Indiana Hoosiers football, that even though it is the national championship, we don't have to do anything that is out of character. That is a key piece for me when listening to that quote. We just got to play our brand of football, and that's what has led us to this point in 50 wins this season. So, and I don't know why I said 50, or I think he meant 15. So it might have been a transcript error there, but 15 wins. They're hoping to be a 16-0 national champion. Miami trying to have something to say about that. Miami did get some experience against against Mendoza when he was at Cal in 2024 as well. He did, have a 11 of 22 day, 285 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. He added 20 yards on the ground as well. That was a very different Miami defense, but the Canes won 39-38 in dramatic fashion. This is a very different Miami defense. This is a very different team that Fernando Mendoza comes into the game with. And now as you sit here and you look behind this group that he's playing behind, 22 sacks in 15 games. They've got a 3-year starter at left tackle with Carter Smith, who is, a first-team all-conference guy. And Pat Coogan, 37-game starter at Notre Dame, came over at center and was third-team all-conference in the Big Ten this year. They do have a 2-year starter at right guard and Bray Lynch. It is a really veteran group at the left guard and right tackle spots as well, with 2-year starters. So really, really just old group up front. And I think Miami and our guys at CaneSport do a great job of covering this as well. You have a group that is going to go up against the best offensive line that it's faced all year, you could argue. And, maybe Ohio State, but we've seen what Indiana was able to do against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. You've got to give that slight edge there to Indiana because they've got that head-to-head in a sense. You do have a offense that averages 461 yards per game, pretty balanced, 218 rushing, 260 through the air, and 218 yards rushing, but yes, still pretty balanced as a whole. And the Miami defense is able to, give up about 260 yards a game. They're really good at defending the run. So you look at what they have to face. I think the Indiana offensive line is something that really stands out to me, though, when evaluating this Indiana team, which watched a little bit of, but obviously with us being an ACC pod, we've certainly watched a lot more of the Miami Hurricanes throughout the year, but just really impressed with, the way Indiana takes every single piece of the puzzle and has worked it into their system and their processes, and everybody buys in. And when you have an offensive line that has played so much college football, this is what it looks like. It looks like 22 sacks given up in 15 games. It looks like Fernando Mendoza having all day to throw against Oregon, which really kind of shocked me. I think you've got to give them so much credit for how they were able to give Fernando Mendoza the time to make those, plays. Because even though Oregon, had self-inflicted wounds all over the place in the Peach Bowl, Indiana and Fernando Mendoza were operating at such a clip that you couldn't have stopped them in a sense. And of course, Charlie Becker has really come on at the wide receiver position and, had a 36-yard touchdown catch in the game against Ole Miss as well. They've got a lot of weapons that are playing some of their best ball as well. And Miami's also going to keep an eye on Riley Nowakowski, big tight end for Indiana, third team, all Big Ten, 30 catches, 370 yards. Tight ends in national championship games where the margin is so slim, they're always guys that I think are kind of these wild card X factor types that end up making critical plays at critical moments for their team. And that kind of helps lift them to those national championship hopes and dreams in the end. Two really standout running backs, Roman Hemby, honorable mention, all Big Ten, and Kalon Black had 961 yards on the ground, just short of Roman Hemby's 1,060 yards on the ground. So nearly 2,000 yards of offense for this run game or over 2,000 yards of offense for this Indiana run game. And, Miami's going to have to contend with that. It's going to start up front. And look, to get more of a glimpse at what Miami is dealing with this Indiana team, we bring on Adam Lichtenstein, covering the Canes here. Really excited to have Adam back on. Adam, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. I got my coffee, so I'm all good.
Yes, I love to hear it. It is quite the task to cover a national championship game because there's only so much time, between the semifinal and the national championship. And for you, so much to do. How has your week been? Everything going to plan for you guys over there?
Yeah, actually, a little peek behind the curtain. This week's actually very, very slow. There's not much media availability this week. Between Mario Cristobal and Kurt Signetti's Monday press conferences, and the team's arrivals. I say arrivals in air quotes because Miami is going from Coral Gables to the other side of Miami. But, between Monday and the team's arrivals on Friday, there's really not much going on. It's just a lot of talking. And I'm thankful that it's Thursday and we're almost done with listening to, no offense, all of us talk and can finally start hearing from the players and coaches again.
And it is teeing up for a great Monday night there right at Hard Rock. It's got to be really nice to not have to travel after the season. But let's get into the game a little bit. Carson Beck, Fernando Mendoza, kind of the complete opposites personality wise. What is that chess match, as far as what you've seen, kind of evaluating it going to look like come Monday night?
Yeah, it seems almost like opposite game plans. I think Indiana's a great all-around team, a great all-around offense, no doubt, but they're going to lean on Fernando Mendoza because he's been so good, because he's the Heisman winner, because he's so accurate. The craziest stat that he has, more touchdown passes in the playoffs than he has in completions, which is just nuts. They're gonna rely on him. Meanwhile, the Hurricanes game plan, if everything goes perfectly, Carson Beck doesn't really have to do a ton. In Miami's ideal world, they're going to run the ball 25, 30 times. Mark Fletcher's going to get 150 rushing yards and a couple touchdowns, and they're going to rely on their running game and their defense to win. And Carson Beck might throw 15, 20 times, ideally. I don't think we're going to live in an ideal world for Miami, but I think it's like an opposite game plans. Like, not that Carson Beck has been bad, but for 2 of the 3 playoff games they've played in, he's not been the primary focus of their offense.
And I'm glad you brought up, Carson Beck having to, maybe be a little bit better than he has, or just not being that primary focus. Even you look at a guy like D'Angelo Pons, who, comes up with a huge play right off the bat against Oregon. That's really, I think, what Miami is going to have to weather is that early, mistake, coming out too jacked up to play in your home field. I don't know how much Mario Cristobal will let us behind the curtain or, in the media with how he, goes about things. But is that something that they are guarding against is the overhype, the everybody's back in Miami watching us try to win this national championship. You don't want to come out feeling the pressure of playing a home game in a sense.
For sure. And like they'll tell us over the next few days that it doesn't matter. They're treating it like any other game. Go 1-0 every week. All the cliches, but it's hard to imagine that it wouldn't feel like there wouldn't be extra juice because you're playing at home. Might be a little different because you're wearing road uniforms and coming out of the road locker room and stuff. But it's hard to imagine a reality where it doesn't factor into people's brains at all. Whether that gives them extra juice and gets them fired up and they play better, or it makes them more nervous, like won't know that until Monday. But yeah, like you said, they definitely have to weather the early excitement boost or curse or whatever you want to call it. And I think both teams are gonna have to deal with that though, because Fernando Mendoza, it's a homecoming for him, being from Miami. Both of these teams are playing in national title games for the first time. For Miami, in Miami's case, in 25 years almost, and in Indiana's case, first time ever. So none of these players have this experience on this stage. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be nerves and excitement for everyone.
That storyline, what do you remember about Fernando Mendoza? And it's kind of been talked about now, with the transfer portal and, how it just didn't come together at an earlier point in his career, when he entered the portal.
Yeah, I didn't cover him much in person because my newspaper's based in Fort Lauderdale, so we don't cover a lot of the Miami schools a ton. But I remember talking to people just around South Florida football, and he came up. It's okay, this Mendoza kid at Miami Columbus, he's good. I don't know how good he's gonna be. Oh, I think he's going to the Ivy League. Oh, he's going to Cal at the last second. Okay, cool. Good for him. I remember people saying he's got a great family, great kid, kind of the things that you hear from local sports writers, myself included, about when they talk about kids they cover, good kid, good player, don't expect he wasn't Jeremiah Smith, obviously I covered Jeremiah Smith, and everyone knew from the time he was a sophomore in high school, if not earlier, that he was going to be a Pro Bowl, potential Pro Bowler one day. And then you see Mendoza do well at Cal, and it's good for him. It's good that he's doing well. Good for him. And I saw him play last year when he was at Cal against Miami, and he was good. He had a good game. Would I have said he's going to be a Heisman in a year? Probably not. So he's the evolution of him from overlooked high schooler to solid college quarterback at Cal. On the outskirts of the ACC. To Heisman winner for a national title potentially winning team is Cinderella doesn't even begin to cover it. It's Cinderella plus I don't know, Snow White, and add a couple other fairy tales in there.
What does Miami have to do to get after this? I think more so Indiana offensive line, kind of reset the line of scrimmage a little bit. Keem Mesidor, Mario Cristobal said he's good to go. It seems like, because that injury did not look good when it happened in the against Ole Miss, and now you have Ruben Bain, you have Akeem Mesidor, Ahmad Milton got banged up early. Are they going to be able to move that line of scrimmage against what is a really veteran and experienced Indiana offensive line?
They definitely need to. I think they will. I'm not guaranteeing anything because my prediction is a 1-point game. I have no idea what's going to happen in this game, but they definitely have to. Mendoza's very, very good under pressure, but he is, like every other quarterback, significantly worse when he's under pressure. So they need to get after him. And something that was interesting to me when I was looking it up the other day when I was trying to figure out who to pick is, so you look at the quarterbacks Miami's played in the playoffs. Julian Sayin and Marcel Reed hold on to the ball for roughly 3 seconds on average, for both of them. And Miami sacked them a combined 12 times. Trinidad Chambliss gets the ball out much faster. He gets it out in an average of 2.4 seconds, give or take. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have a Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor coming after you, that's a lot of time. He got the ball out much faster, and Miami only sacked him one time. Fernando Mendoza is right smack dab in the middle of Chambliss and Sayin and Reed. Gets the ball out slower than Chambliss, but faster than Reed and Sayin. So the question is that enough time for Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor to get to him? I think it's possible. Indiana has a All-American left tackle in Carter Smith, who I think has allowed 1 sack all season, which is obviously a huge asset to have at left tackle. But Miami faced a similar offensive line against A&M, where Trey Zune, their left tackle, is also, an All-American, also, allowed, I think, only one sack going into the game against Miami. And Miami was still able to get pressure in that game. I think, I've heard, I don't know a ton about like every individual person on Indiana's offensive line, but I do know Carter Smith's obviously the strength, and then it's not as strong across the board. Still good, but not like as good. And when you have the number one pass rushing team in the country with the most sacks, the highest pass rushing grade from PFF, they're going to bring exotic pressures. They're going to bring defensive back blitzes. Like Keontae Scott always has an eye on the quarterback. Like they have to get pressure, and I think they will.
You mentioned that is incredible research, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it did seem like Trinidad Chambliss was almost at times able to almost taunt the Miami defensive backs who would, bring that blitz. I know there was, I think, one where, Keontae Scott came and just didn't get to him, and Trinidad Chambliss took the hit, made a play, and kind of let him know a little bit about it. And when you factor in those defensive ends, being able to pass rush the way they do, that is going to be, really probably where the game is won or lost. And if they can set up Indiana in, situations where they're behind the chains, that gets them off of their, game plan completely, because they're very much a team that, thrives on the efficiency of their offense and converting third downs and picking up what they need to just keep the drives rolling.
Yeah, exactly. And like, hey, Indiana's game plan, like same as Miami's kind of, is just get those chunk plays, like get those, 5, 6 yard plays, make it 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4. And then, if you don't get a first down on 2nd down, a 3rd and 2. Miami plays the same way. If you can get them and force them into 3rd and 9s, 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 11s, whatever, long 3rd down plays, if they convert, tip of the hat, good job. But that's where Miami thrives. They thrive when they can pin their ears back and rush. So if, you can get either team really in these 3rd and long situations, your chances of getting the offense off the field is obviously much, much higher. And that's basic football. It's obvious, but like it's going to be so important in this game, making sure for both defenses that they keep those offenses behind the chains.
Carson Beck facing this Indiana defense that is, really, really kind of a tight-knit group. I thought the thing that stood out that I didn't realize watching that Oregon broadcast, and they mentioned it right off the bat in the opening play, they play like 14 guys. They don't have a deep rotation, but they all play extremely hard. They have versatility. They do all the things that they're asked of defensively to make this happen. What does Carson Beck have to do to, maybe be a little bit more of a playmaker that I thought he did at the end of that Ole Miss game, and, the heroics that he showed, but kind of pick up where he left off in a sense in that regard?
Run the ball, apparently. Take the ball and run, apparently.
Vanilla Vic.
Dual threat quarterback over there. But yeah, no, I mean, like obviously Indiana has a phenomenal defense. Like I was looking at like their PFF grades and their stats and stuff, and it's like every guy, like every position is, you would think it's like Ohio State. Like Ohio State was kind of reminded me of Ohio State, where it's like every position they've got dudes. Defensive line, linebacker, DB, like they're good all over the place. So, Beck obviously has to continue what he's done for really the last couple months and be very careful with the ball. And he has been over the past 7 games. So since the SMU game, he's only thrown 2 interceptions. One of them was against Ole Miss, where the ball just was tipped. Like it got tipped at the line and fell to a defender, and like only so much of the blame is on him for that. But he has to be very careful with the ball. He's going to have to fit the ball into tight windows probably, which he has shown that he can do. He's going to have to convert on 3rd downs, which he's been doing all throughout the playoffs. Kind of just keep doing what he's doing. He's not put up like insane numbers. He hasn't put up Fernando Mendoza numbers, but he's been consistently good when they need him. And I think they're going to, kind of stick with what works. And it's all going to come down to how much they can do in the running game. If they can get 5 yards a carry out of Mark Fletcher, they don't need Carson Beck to throw for 300 yards. If Mark Fletcher's running for 2.5, 3 yards a carry, okay, now you need Carson Beck to do a little bit more. Get the ball out to the playmakers, get it out to Tony, get it out to Keelan Marion, and make things happen, and maybe make things happen downfield. But ideally for Miami, they'll be moving the ball the most, running the ball.
18 interceptions, 11 fumble recoveries. Ball security is going to be key. Another key, field position always. I think this is an area where Miami could exploit it a little bit. Indiana's punt game, not necessarily a great thing. Granted, they don't punt it a ton, but that is something where I think this game could be a little bit more of a defensive battle. I just like the way both these defenses are lined up, and I think both teams would rather this not get into some shootout. I would think. And so if you're seeing the punters get jogged out there a little bit more, I kind of lean Miami. I kind of lean field position being in Miami's favor here.
Yeah, I mean, I was slamming the table at the end of the regular season. I'm like, Dylan Joyce should have been an all ACC punter. Uh, and like he's had some like I mean some highlight reel punts in the playoffs. He had one, I think, against Ohio State where they pinned him at the 2. You know, he's a great punter. He's a weapon in getting them, you know, good field position. He hasn't been perfect, but he's very good. And like you said, I don't think I don't know if either team really wants this to be a shootout, but I do think if it does become a shootout, that favors Indiana. Kind of like with Ole Miss, where I think, you know, if Miami can drag this game, make, you know, kind of slow it, well, not really slow it down, but technically speed it up because the clock's always running if you're running the ball, but, you know, slow it down, have those long methodical drives, those 10, 12 play, 75-yard drives where you score at the end. Like that's the game Miami wants to play. I think that's also the game kind of Indiana wants to play. So they're kind of they're very. I find these teams very similar in kind of like their styles and their strengths. But I do think if this game does end up more of a shootout style, that does favor Indiana.
Miami wins if, and Miami loses if.
Miami wins if they can get to Fernando Mendoza. If they can put him on the ground and put him and constantly harass him, they have I think they have a very good shot to win the game. Miami loses if they can't get to Mendoza and allow him to pick them apart because Miami's going to be short on defensive backs in this game, short on cornerbacks. Xavier Lucas is out for the first half because of the targeting call against Ole Miss.
Crazy.
That's what. Yeah, I don't know what targeting is anymore.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I stopped pretending like I have any clue. But he's out for the first half because of that targeting call. OJ Frederic is banged up. Mario Cristobal said he should be good to go, but he did only play 5 snaps against Ole Miss. Who else? Damari Brown, who he's been out the whole playoff run, but was very good for them during the regular season. He's been day to day for the last week or two. He was listed as questionable for the last game. We'll see what happens this week, but I wouldn't expect him because even if he is healthy enough to play, he hasn't played in going on a month and a half now, almost 2 months. Do you really want to throw him into the mix against, the best team you're going to play all year? I don't know. So they're going to be a little bit short on cornerbacks. That depth is really going to be tested. So if Miami lets Fernando Mendoza sit in the pocket and find, Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, then they're in a lot of trouble.
We will see how it goes. And have you revealed your prediction? Are you able to reveal your prediction now?
I can reveal the top secret information because it was in the Sun Sentinel yesterday. I went back and forth for basically from the time the Indiana-Oregon game, well, I wouldn't even say ended because that game was over in the second quarter. I was going to pick Indiana. They're so good all over the field. I just you have the Heisman, you have great running backs, great receivers, great everything. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick Indiana. And then the more I dug into it, I'm like, I think Miami has a good shot in this game. And I think I don't know if you look at the teams that Indiana's played, when they play those really talented teams, they're not always a juggernaut. They only beat Ohio State by 3, and Miami beat them by 10. And they only beat a bad Penn State team by 3, and they needed a miracle touchdown at the end to do that. They only beat Iowa by 5. And I'm like, Miami's better than those teams. So I'm like, let me think about this. And like I said, I dug into that stuff with Mendoza's time to throw and how he is under pressure. And I'm like, if Miami gets to him, Miami's the best pass rushing team that they'll have played. And if they get to him, they can win. So I picked Miami 21-20.
Okay. We have it here first. We have it here first from Adam Lichtenstein. We appreciate all the time previewing this game. Enjoy it, man. These things are just awesome to be a part of, and very happy for you to bounce back from where you guys were as a beat following that SMU game, and now get to be here.
I just think back I think back to Middle Tennessee State 4 years ago where Miami lost, and like not in a fluky way, to Middle Tennessee State at home, and the fans losing their minds. I think back to the Georgia Tech game 3 years ago, where I was looking around the press box like, am I the dumb one here? Like, am I the one who can't do math? Which is entirely possible. And I think back to those games, and they've come a long way. And it is really cool. And like, Indiana deserves all the attention, all the props. Like, this is the team that was the losingest team in college football forever. And the fact that they've turned things around in 2 years is insane. They deserve all the props. But it is kind of Miami getting kind of lost in the shuffle, because they are a great story in their own right as well.
Well, that's why you stick with head coaches sometimes. You know, I don't know if it would have been easy to get rid of Mario Cristobal after some of those moments, but it in today's day and age of college football, sticking by their guy has paid off in a huge way, and Miami is back, as Mario Cristobal doesn't like to hear, but it's true. They are back.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely back to being relevant. That's for sure.
Yep. There he goes. Adam Lichtenstein. Thanks so much, man. We will, I'm sure, be chatting with you after the national championship at some point. Enjoy it.
For sure. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yep. There he goes. Adam Lichtenstein, joining us on All Access AM. Thanks so much for his time joining us. Big time opportunity for Miami to do something really special in their home stadium. We are going to have a show Monday morning, of course. I am going to reveal my prediction Monday on the show. I'm still wrestling with it. I don't want to sit here and think that I'm just automatically going to pick Miami. I am leaning there right now, but I want to just kind of think this over a little bit longer before I reveal my official prediction for this national championship game, because look, there's a lot to like about what Indiana has done and their dominant run. I mean, this is a team that is really shown just how well they're built. And, you know, at the same time, Miami has just tons and tons of talent, and things have certainly come together in the right way for them as well. So lots to talk about there. Do want to remind you guys about our friend Doyle Glass. His best-selling books on the Vietnam War are something that you guys should pick up, whether it be on Amazon, whether it be on Barnes & Noble. They have firsthand accounts of the Vietnam War from American heroes, whether it's Lions of Medina or Swift Sword. Make sure you pick up one of his books today. They are just incredible. And soon enough, he will be coming out with the World War II book as well. And here's one of the reviews on Lions of Medina, which, you know, I am reading right now, but quote, captures the chaos and ferocity of infantry combat and shows that little has changed from the past at Thermopylae to the jungles of Vietnam and the streets of Iraq. That's from Nathaniel Fick, a New York Times best-selling author, one bullet away. So Doyle Glass is a great gift for birthdays, for Christmas, for Father's Day. Make sure you hook up the history buff in your life with a book from Doyle Glass. So you can check that out in the podcast episode description as well, and click the link and go shop his books that he's got out there. Let's get to the transfer portal, ACC football. But before we do that, we do have some news and notes on the transfer portal for basketball to pass along for you guys. The NCAA D1 cabinet adopts the new windows for men's and women's hoops. Wednesday's announcement did reveal those dates that they'll open and close. The women's basketball portal window opens April 6th and runs through April 20th. Men's basketball opens April 7th and runs through April 21st. The portal window will now open for 15 days after their respective national championships, and that'll take place this year. When a coaching change occurs, a 15-day window will open 5 days after a new coach is hired or publicly announced. If a coach is not announced within 30 days of the current coach's departure, and if the 31st day is after the national championship game, wow, word salad, a 15-day window will then open. So keep that in mind for your planning and covering or following your team's men's and women's basketball transfer portal window. So lots to get to on the football side of things. Georgia Tech gets a huge addition in the transfer portal with Justice Haynes committing to the Yellow Jackets. Haynes transferred to Michigan from Alabama before the 2025 season after spending 2 years in Tuscaloosa. He very, very got close to finishing as the Wolverines' leading rusher in 2025. 857 yards, 10 touchdowns on 121 carries, 7.1 yards per carry. Huge piece for Brent Key and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets to get him to his hometown, really, in a sense, getting him back to the state of Georgia and being able to play in front of so many families and family and friends. Going to be really special for the first time Justin Haynes gets in action for the Yellow Jackets with him returning to the Peach State. He's going to be one of the biggest names in the ACC at the running back position for the 2026 season. He really came out as a highly touted top 50, borderline 5-star prospect on the Rivals industry ranking. And, for the most part, he's kind of had, I don't want to say underwhelming, but how the path is at Alabama. For some of these young running backs, they see the field, they see action, they see time, but it isn't necessarily this overwhelming, exposure right away that you've seen some other programs be able to offer because of the depth that they have. Then he comes back as a sophomore, he has almost 500 yards on the ground. And then that's when he pulled the trigger and transferred to Michigan. And watching that recruitment unfold was pretty fascinating in the transfer portal. He was a big money running back. I'm sure this is a Georgia Tech team that is spending big in this regard, but it's just fascinating to watch this play out, and now him get back to his home state and now gets to join up with this transfer portal class that they've assembled. So a really big pickup for Georgia Tech in the transfer portal. They did also add a new tight end to their roster in Yale tight end Spencer Mermans as well. So they're getting rolling in that regard. They also have another Ivy Leaguer, Chris Corbo, in their tight end room. And he said that he really just liked the coaches. He liked the opportunity to live in Atlanta. And this is a big pickup for Georgia Tech to kind of establish their offensive identity that they want to have, but did get him into the boat with 2 years of eligibility remaining. And he redshirted in 2023 and then played in 24 career games, had 2 catches for 8 yards. So Georgia Tech kind of adding some depth there to the tight end room. And of course, make sure you guys are following along if you're a Georgia Tech fan at jacketsonline.com. They've got a bunch of targets remaining on the board for their transfer portal run. They are betting right now on Graham Knowles or Grady Adamson to be the starting quarterback, but they're certainly making a push here to add another arm to this room. And it's going to be fascinating to watch it play out as Brent Key and this staff and this new look offensive staff has to hit on the quarterback position to be relevant next year. EJ Colson from Incarnate Word, Jake Merklinger from Tennessee, Nico Marichol from West Virginia. Those are some names that have jumped out a little bit just as far as adding depth to that quarterback room to maybe pair with now a Justice Haynes for Georgia Tech. So really, really interesting to see how that plays out. As an aside, Georgia Tech former quarterback Haynes King is going to be at the East-West Shrine Bowl. We will be there in a couple of weeks covering that. I'm looking forward to catching up with Haynes. I haven't talked with him since ACC Media Days, but even then, this is a relationship that dates back to high school, his high school recruiting as well. We chatted a couple times over the course of that as LSU was recruiting him and involved before he ended up at Texas A&M. So excited to see him get to the Shrine Bowl and play that out in front of NFL scouts and get his name out there, of course. And Cade Klubnik will be out there as well for Clemson. Looking forward to chatting with Cade since last time we caught up was at ACC Media Days as well. But we've got more transfer portal news to talk about on the pod as well. Louisville offensive lineman Jordan Church entered the portal. He's left the program now after 1 year. He is looking for his third school in as many years after he started out his career at FAU, spent 2 seasons there. So he is looking to get a bigger role, I would say. He was able to get into the game against Bowling Green, I should say, and made his mark there for the Cardinals, but he is on the move now after just one season. You do have some big names continuing to add to that Virginia Tech roster. James Franklin and Virginia Tech, adding former Penn State cornerback Kenny Woosley into the mix. He spent 2 years with Penn State, now finished the 2025 season with 10 tackles, tackle for loss, 1 PBU in 13 games, and now gets to come into this Virginia Tech program and make an impact right away, I think, for 3 years. Member of the 2024 class, he redshirted that season, played a bunch this season for Penn State, at least getting into the games. Now he's got 3 years to play for James Franklin. This is a guy that James Franklin knows a lot about, and they add him into the mix now for this roster in 2025. But right after we got done recording, we kind of talked about this one. Ethan Grunkmeyer commits to Georgia Tech formally. He has announced that decision with 3 years of eligibility remaining. The Virginia Tech Hokies get their quarterback for the 2026 season. He took over for Drew Aller following his injury and now follows James Franklin to the ACC to be the quarterback for Virginia Tech. Big deal here. He started the final 7 games for the Nittany Lions this season. He threw for 1,339 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 picks, completed 69% of his passes. So a really high-end quarterback here coming into this Virginia Tech program, and one that James Franklin and his staff can now build around. I think that kind of gives you a better feel for James Franklin having the opportunity to have success in year one at Virginia Tech. We'll have to get our friend David Cunningham to talk more about this portal class, what they've put together, because they have lost some guys as well to the portal that could have certainly helped them this year. But for the most part, they've stacked up a really nice class here, grouping it all together with a recruiting class that was right there on the verge of being a top 25 class as well. And now they've gotten some really high-end transfers. So maybe it is something to watch, that Virginia Tech can get back to bowling and make a splash in year one of the James Franklin era. Not done with the transfer portal news that were popping in as well. Dylan Rousey committed to Louisville, safety transfer that they've added as a depth piece, and he gets to stay in state and finish off his career, which started at Murray State. He had 139 total tackles, ranking 3rd among FCS players. He's a former junior college guy who battled his way to Murray State and ends up notching 89 solo tackles. So good in space there. And he gets to add more to that Louisville safety room that they wanted to upgrade. And they do that with Rousey. So interesting one there. And on the other side of the Virginia Tech-Virginia rivalry, Brandon Hillman, a former Michigan Wolverine, one of the top transfer portal targets out there across the country, really, has committed to play his ball at Virginia. 4-star transfer addition for the Hoos. He totaled 49 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and an interception in 2025. He's appeared in 32 games in his time at Michigan and was named an All Big Ten selection as well. He had 11 starts at safety for the Wolverines, and all of those came this past season. So a really physical safety that immediately becomes somebody that you've got to circle for some of those preseason All ACC watch lists as well, heading over to play for Virginia and be an impact player for them. Justin Ross, Navy transfer, did commit as well. Defensive back commits to the Hoos to transfer there, and he gets on board with Tony Elliott and company. Jacoby Henderson is another corner they added to that room, but Ross spent the last 2 seasons with Navy and had a huge year, 32 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, interception, 4 pass breakups, and he had 10 games under his belt as a true freshman in 2024, and he'll have 2 years of eligibility remaining. So nice pickup there for Virginia, getting just a very mature young man, somebody who spent time at the Naval Academy coming into that Virginia program. Cal also went on a bit of a run, adding multiple offensive linemen. Kali Tafai committed a transfer from Minnesota. he's jumped into the boat. He did play at Washington as well, and then spent the last season at Minnesota. He played in 3 games, no starts, so depth guy here. And this is somebody that they can kind of lean on to just be a depth guy for them. So they add him into the mix. They weren't done on the offensive line either. Ashton Rivera out of Kent State committed to Cal, and he has really jumped on board as a 6'2", 310 squatty interior offensive lineman who played 11 games and was a starter for Kent State this past season after arriving from FIU. So he jumps in to the boat as well. So Ron Rivera and Tosh Lapoy addressing the trenches for that Cal team. And finally, a couple other notes on Cal. They did add a Oregon transfer. Cooper Perry, wide receiver, has transferred from Oregon to Cal after his freshman season. He played 1 year with the Ducks and will have 3 years of eligibility remaining. He appeared in 12 games as a true freshman, so actually saw the field for the Ducks, but 10 catches, 25 yards, so not really any sort of explosiveness there. But he jumps in as a former 4-star receiver prospect out of Arizona, comes with Tosh Lapoy to Cal. You got to figure they're trying to surround Jaron Kiowasagapatelli with as much talent as they can, and they're doing that in the transfer portal with some of their additions. So fascinating to watch what else Cal has up their sleeve. Finally, BC did get an interior offensive line commitment from Christian Phillips, former Michigan State offensive lineman, jumps on board to play for Bill O'Brien and company. A 6'5", 340-pound offensive lineman. He's trimmed down a little bit now, but he has a connection with Kenyatta Watson, their new GM there, from his time being a Peach State prospect, class of 2022 guy who took a red shirt in 2022 at Michigan State before playing in 11 games in 2023 and appeared in 6 games with 4 starts this past season before he was banged up with injury. So he gets around somebody familiar, gets to maybe finish out his college career the right way with the BC program. North Carolina DB Greg Smith did enter the portal as well. He spent 1 season with the Tar Heels after transferring in from Florida. He saw action in 5 games for the Gators in 2024. And this year, he played in all 12 games for Bill Belichick and company, 25 tackles and an interception. He's out of the state of Florida. I'll be interested to see where he ends up going, but somebody that could certainly help somebody out there, with his production just right off the bat and his age too. He's somebody who's doesn't jump out as a really old transfer portal prospect either. So something to keep an eye on there as Greg Smith enters the portal. So with that, guys, we're going to wrap up this edition of All Access AM. It is a fascinating world to follow the transfer portal. Money is out of control. And I want to leave you with a feel-good story, though, because it is just wild and kind of dark at times with the portal. Mark Fletcher's mother revealed she has traveled 17,000 miles following Miami this year. And I saw this at the Texas A&M game. They talked about her on the broadcast and how she drives to every game because she doesn't like flying. She has traveled 17,000 miles. It is crazy. The round trip, 6,200 miles from Fort Lauderdale to Cal in 2024. Well, they've upped it, of course, with what they're doing with all these trips to Glendale, to College Station, to Arlington. It is incredible. 250 total hours of driving following her son, Mark Fletcher. And this time, she doesn't have to go but about 30 minutes, I'm sure. She goes, quote, "It's good. It's a good 15 miles, baby." She can handle that. And that is something that Linda Fletcher, really, really cool, revealed on Joey Galloway and Kirk Herbstreit's podcast, or Mark Fletcher was talking about it. So really cool story for your Monday night national championship viewing. I'm sure she'll get some broadcast time, or I hope she does, because that mother's love is really, really special. And Miami's got something special brewing. We'll see if they can finish it off against Indiana on Monday night. We'll have a full preview and breakdown on the Hurricanes versus the Hoosiers on All Access AM on Monday. Please do me a favor as we wrap up the show. Google All Access AM YouTube, and then hit the subscribe button. That would help me out a ton. And check us out on Apple and Spotify. And if you are a Spotify listener, I like listening to my podcasts on Spotify. We now have the video on Spotify for you guys as well. So if you're a rewatcher, if you're listening to this later and you're normally on YouTube, but you prefer Spotify, you can listen or watch on Spotify now. So a huge ad there. We appreciate Spotify for hooking us up with that. And this channel's taken off. We've had a bunch of people subscribe to the channel. It is free to subscribe, costs you nothing, just helps us grow this channel and continue to build this brand, All Access AM. So appreciate all of you guys for tuning in on this Thursday, a little bit later start, but gets you through a little bit more of your workday, maybe wherever you are. We're live Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central. We appreciate you guys listening. We will catch you guys Monday night, last day of the college football season, and we'll have all the coverage of Miami, Indiana. So I'm Billy Embody. Have a great weekend, everyone. We will catch you next time on All Access AM.